Hi, in this video I would like to show a little bit about a project we've done this year for Christmas. This is a animated light show that is synced with music, and I kind of wanted to go over some of the stuff that we used for this, show off some of the stuff that we custom built and a lot of the stuff that we had to hand make to make this whole thing come together. So come with me for a little tour. Okay, so the first thing that I'd like to show are these 4 arches that we designed and built. These were built with thin wall PVC and some custom designed brackets that we 3D printed, and everything's mounted on some pressure treated 1x6. Inside of the PVC are LED strips. They're RGB LED strips, and the strips are oriented so that they're laying flat along the inside of the arch. They're inside the pipe, but they're laying flat against, so that way the LEDs are radiating out like this. And at night you get a really nice diffused look with the light from the LEDs being diffused by the PVC, and they really do look pretty good. I'm pretty proud of these. There are a lot of different designs out on the internet on how to build these, but I came up with kind of my own thing, basically a variation on other things that I'd seen. Probably my most proud thing is the foot brackets themselves. I designed those and 3D printed those. Those took about 10 hours a piece, so they took quite a while to print all 8 of them, but in the long run I think they were worth it. One detail about the brackets is that I had to have an easy way of connecting the wires together. So there's a little window that is designed into the side, but there's also a little stop in the bottom that keeps the pipe from sliding all the way down. If it slid all the way down, it would pinch the cable and potentially damage it. So there's a little stop block in there that stops the pipe from sliding all the way down into the bracket. While I'm here, I'll show you the connectors we used. These are commonly referred to sometimes as X connectors. They're basically a 3-conductor plug, and they are watertight, and so far they seem to be doing the trick. The next thing I'll show you is our LED matrix that we made. Now this was completely handmade. It's a 9x16 matrix, and this is just that plastic Coro board that you would buy for making like campaign signs or something like that. Took 3 layers of that, glued it together with spray adhesive, and then drew a grid and drilled everything out pretty precisely so that it didn't look too sloppy. And this is working really well. The purpose of this is to scroll the FM radio frequency that we're transmitting the music on. And this has worked really well. You can see on the back side of the sign, all of these LEDs are daisy chained. They are all one long string. They just zigzag. They zigzag back and forth and create the whole sign. So these candy canes, the cutouts themselves were purchased from a company called Boscoyo, and I believe they're out of California. We were able to just purchase the cutouts themselves. They're already pre-cut and drilled. We just added the LEDs, and as you see, the LEDs are punched through just like on the matrix sign. And the nice thing is, the way these are designed is you just go in one long string. So they just zigzag up all the way up, and then they come back down. So it's one long string. And then each one of these are tied to each other in series. So this is like one giant long string of LEDs, even though each one is separate from itself. And you can see the connecting cable going between all of them. This is called the mega tree, or this is what they're commonly called as a mega tree. This particular mega tree is 10 strands, 50 LEDs per strand, and again, these are all hooked in series. They just zigzag up and down, connecting to each other. So it's one long string of 500 LEDs to make up the entire tree. What's special about this is, first of all, we built everything by hand here. So this 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 is a thick wall EMT type pipe. We modified this pipe simply by adding bolts with eye bolts at the top, and we're using steel cable to hold it up. The aluminum plate at the top, I milled that out in our shop, and that was custom made for this specific purpose. Each strip is just zip tied to the top plate, and it comes down to these orange plastic stakes, and they're zip tied to the stakes as well. One unique thing about this tree is that since it's so many LEDs, there is quite a bit of current being drawn, so there's a separate power supply that is here just for this tree. I opened up the power supply box so you could get a better look at it. It's just a 12 volt 30 amp power supply, and we did use these watertight connectors. These are marine grade watertight connectors. The green cable is the AC power coming in to power the power supply. The gray cables are the 12 volts DC going out to the various strings. And basically what we're doing is string number 1 on the tree is being powered by the controller, and then each additional 3 strings are isolated and powered by this power supply. So the first cable goes to strings 2, 3, and 4, then the next is 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, and 10. That's how it's broken up. In addition to everything else in the yard, we put up these 8 snowflakes. These were also purchased by Boscoyo, or purchased from Boscoyo. These were pre-cut out, pre-drilled. We just punched the LEDs into them just like we did with the candy canes. All 8 of them are strung together in a single string. And we did make custom jumper cables to go in between each one so that they mostly blend in with the house. They're made out of white jacketed cable. It's kind of ugly in the daytime, but at night you can't see any of it, so it doesn't really matter too much. And it's not permanent. This is the actual control cabinet that we built. Everything here we hand built. So we started with a pile of parts, cabinets, connectors, everything, and build everything up from scratch. Inside the controller cabinet you can see that there's a 12 volt power supply. That's also another 30 amp supply. And then the controller is a Falcon F16 V4. This is the new version they came out with for this year. So we were lucky enough to get one of the new controllers. This controller actually has up to 16 output channels. We knew that we were only going to use about 4 or 5 this year, so I only wired up for the first 8. So we still have expansion space, but in the future I may be replacing this box with a bigger box so I can wire up the additional 8 ports if we need them in the future. You can also see that there's Ethernet. There's actually a small 2-port switch built into this board. So those 2 blue Cat6 cables are going down. Again, we're using the same waterproof connectors, the marine grade connectors, including these connectors for the Ethernet themselves. Everything is waterproof. Everything's basically marine grade. The Ethernet is getting into the house through a box that I added on the front of the house. This actually has keystone jacks in it, and that's how we're getting the Ethernet into the house to get it to the network. Inside the house, as part of the network elements, or the parts of the network, we have a Raspberry Pi 4 that's running FPP, which stands for Falcon Player, a Falcon Pi Player. This is actually what is controlling the show every single night. It starts the show automatically. All the music is stored on this little Pi. Everything is controlled from here. Speaking of music, there's an audio cable going from this Pi up to that little transmitter at the top of the rack, and that is our FM transmitter transmitting the music over the air when the show is running. Okay, thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, please leave them down in the comments section, and a like on the video is always appreciated. We'll see you next time.